The end of your day in the field doesn't mean the adventure is over. Let's take a look at the important considerations and things you should do after the hunt. You'll often be returning to your vehicle late in the day, and it might even be dark, so take extra caution and unload your shotgun before you get back to your car. You'll want to then wipe down your gun with a clean rag and a touch of oil. Check it one more time to make sure it's empty, and then safely secure it in a case for transport. Again, it'll be important that you're familiar with the laws in the state you're hunting when it comes to transporting firearms. As a general rule, you should always have your gun unloaded and cased when in a vehicle. Field dressing is the act of breaking down your birds so that they're ready for storage or meal prep. You can do this immediately after the hunt while still in the field, or you could wait until you're back home. Just make sure you're doing it within a few hours of your hunt, regardless of the location. One of the goals of a good hunter should be to serve a delicious meal to friends or family. Let's take a look at how you can set yourself up for the best results in the kitchen. Time, temperature, and the care you take from field to table are the most important variables in the quality of wild game meat. Your goal is to cool the bird as soon as possible and then finish the processing of the meat as soon as you're able. If you're going to clean your birds in the field, make sure you understand the laws for transporting them. Some states require certain parts of the bird, such as a head, a foot, or a fully feathered wing, stay attached for identification purposes. If you're waiting to clean the birds at home, you should place them in a cool and dry area of your vehicle. Consider a spot with good airflow and no direct sunlight. Never put birds in the trunk, stack gear on top of them, or pile them up, as it could promote growth of bacteria. Ideally, put them in a cooler with ice for the ride home. Let's assume you're going to clean the bird at home after following the transportation requirements of the state you hunted. Start by getting the tools you need ready for your work. The basics are a good cutting board, a sharp knife, a pair of shears, a garbage bag, containers for freezing the meat, paper or clean cloth towels, and some cool water. Additionally, it's recommended to wear rubber or latex gloves to avoid transmission of diseases like avian flu or West Nile virus. Make sure you're only harvesting and eating birds that appear physically healthy and aren't behaving or appearing abnormal, as this could indicate disease. Once you have your equipment ready, you'll need to determine whether you're going to simply breast the bird, skin it, or pluck it. Let's walk through each method. Breasting involves simply peeling the feathers and skin back from the body of the bird and then cutting the breast meat from the bone. You can easily peel back the skin and feathers on an upland bird to expose its breast and crop. The crop is a sac located between the neck and the breast, and it's where the bird stores its food for digestion. It's often a bulging sac of greens, grains, or insects. I like to take a peek in the crop to see what the bird has been eating, as it gives me insight into what type of habitat the birds have been frequenting. You'll want to remove the crop so that it's not in your way. Once you've exposed the breast, you can carefully run your knife down one side of the keel bone to remove the meat. Repeat this process on the other side, and you'll have 2 clean pieces of breast meat, and the rest of the carcass can be discarded. While this method is simple and often used, it's obviously only giving you a portion of the potential nutrition that this bird can provide. Skinning a bird is additional work, but it yields more meat and provides you with other cooking options, including use of the carcass for stocks and soups. You'll start the process in the same way as breasting a bird, by peeling back the skin and feathers. But you'll then continue removing the skin around the back and down the legs so that you have it all removed from the main parts of the body. Once you've removed the skin, you can cut off the legs at the knee joint, the head at the neck, as well as the tail and wings. A knife or simple garden shears will work well on any upland birds. Some people like to remove these parts before the skinning process, so it's really up to you and your personal preference. Now that you have a skinned bird, you'll want to remove the viscera from the body cavity. Start by making a small incision between the base of the breastbone and the vent of the bird. Then use 1 or 2 fingers to reach up and into the chest cavity until you feel the heart, and then pull everything back towards you to clear the guts from the cavity of the bird. At this point, you can carefully cut around the vent to remove all the viscera as well as the tip of the oily tail section. Consider keeping the heart, gizzard, and liver as giblets for making stuffing, sauces, or other recipes. Next, you'll want to peek inside the cavity of the bird and make sure it's clean. Ideally, the lungs will come out intact, but if not, just use your fingers to clear any spongy pink matter from between the rib bones. Now, wash the bird out with cold water and make sure all feathers have been removed, including any that may have gotten pushed into holes from the shot pellets. Plucking a bird involves an even greater level of work, but can be worth every moment of the effort. It yields the most meat, and plucking keeps the skin intact, which helps maintain moisture during cooking and adds flavor. Start by plucking the feathers from a completely intact bird. You can begin wherever you like. Personally, I like starting with the breast. Simply grab a small amount of feathers between your thumb and forefinger and give a quick tug. The breast and back feathers will come off easily, and the tail and wing feathers will provide more resistance. Be careful you don't tear the skin, which is rather delicate on upland birds, but don't worry if you do, as this is part of the learning process. Work your way around the bird so that all feathers are removed from the breast, back, and legs. You'll then want to remove the legs, wings, tail, and head with your knife or shears. Also make sure you remove the crop that is still under the skin. You've now got a clean plucked bird, and you can remove the viscera in the same way previously described in the skinning of the bird process. Now, wash the bird out with cold water and make sure all feathers have been removed, including any that may have gotten pushed into holes from the shot pellets. There are many opinions on whether birds should be aged, brined, saved, or eaten right away, and you're going to hear these conversations with other hunters quite often as you continue your hunting journey. I'd recommend you try different methods over time, but for now, let's just assume that you want to store your birds for use at a later date. If you plan to eat the birds within 2 or 3 days, you can simply store them in a refrigerator with a temperature set slightly lower than 40 degrees Fahrenheit. If you won't get to the birds by then, make sure you freeze them right away. Keep them at 0 degrees Fahrenheit or lower until you're ready to defrost them for use. Use waxed freezer paper, plastic bags, or other products that are designed for protecting frozen food. Make sure you wrap the birds tightly and remove as much air from your packaging as possible. And don't forget to label your package with the date and contents. And try to eat the birds within a year of freezing them. There's an abundance of recipes for wild game birds. However, if you have a chicken recipe you love, try substituting your wild birds in it. You might find a new favorite dish. Over time, you can then get more adventurous and try new recipes and methods of cooking. Many people who didn't grow up eating wild game worry about meat being gamey or having too strong of a flavor. The beauty of upland birds is that with proper care, the flavor is generally mild. And while these birds may resemble a domestic chicken, people often find the meat of upland birds more complex and flavorful, making a meal that much more enjoyable. Remember, flavors of game meat are impacted by the diet of each bird. That diet is a reflection of the land you were hunting and can be a great connection back to your hunt. With proper handling of the birds, you'll be able to taste those flavors, and it may even trigger a fond memory from your time in the field. Birds like pheasant, quail, and grouse primarily eat grains, seeds, and plants. As a result, they have a lighter pink flesh with a relatively mild flavor. The woodcock has a diet heavy in earthworms, and therefore their meat is dark and much richer in flavor. Some may find this more challenging to eat, but many say the American woodcock is their favorite upland game bird on the table, so it might be yours too. Here are a few tips for cooking upland birds regardless of your recipe. Take care when cooking the breast meat, as it can quickly dry out. If you pluck the bird and leave the skin on, it can help it retain moisture and add flavor. However, it can be challenging to get the skin crispy without overcooking the breast meat. Higher heat and faster cooking times can be helpful in this regard. Dry cooking methods like pan frying are well suited to younger birds, whereas moist methods like stews and braising can be better for older or tougher birds. A good rule of thumb for safety is to cook all wild game to an internal temperature of 165 degrees. The juices of the bird should run clear at this temperature. On our trip across the country, you got to see wild game dishes that reflected the unique regions and traditions of different hunters. Some of these recipes had been passed down from previous generations. From a mung pheasant soup to a pot pie on the prairie, from a chile verde on the west coast to quail and waffles in the south. I was welcomed to the table by these generous hunters and their family and friends who were more than ready to share their love for these birds and a hearty meal with me. Remember to share your newfound love of hunting with others through the generosity of a wild game meal and stories of adventure.